Well, it started snowing. They've been predicting this snow for probably a week now. No, it's not as bad as what they said. The thing is when I woke up this morning, I looked at the map, and literally there was a bubble around us. We were in the rain. Everything around us was snowing. We were just in this pocket of hot air. It's pretty warm still yet. The rain changed over to snow, but it's not really sticking, as you probably can tell. It's melting pretty quick. It's 37 degrees outside. The temperature is not going to get down to 32 until like 4 p.m. By then the snow is supposed to stop. So I would suspect that our biggest problem is the roads are going to ice up. I did see the MoDOT, Missouri Department of Transportation, spreading salt or chemicals or something on the road. So if it doesn't wash off, the roads might be fine. So today I'm just going to kind of lay back and not do anything. It's Saturday. I try not to do too much on Saturdays anyways. So I thought I'd talk about something that I really enjoy. I like and always have collecting knives. I always have ever since I was a little kid. The problem is we experienced a fire when we were nomads, and I had all the knives with me, and they were in the camper when the camper burned down. And so I lost all that, plus a couple firearms that I really like too. I've never replaced the firearms. I've been trying slowly to rebuild my knife collection. It's by no stretch of the imagination of anything that I used to have. It's hard to even remember what kind of knives I had. I just had all kinds, and I really enjoyed all of them. But right now I'm just trying to replace the things that I use the most. Now the first knife I got is just a regular, side carry knife. It's nothing fancy. It's Elk Ridge. And I went down to help my dad in Florida put a roof on his house. And in payment, I told him there was no payment necessary because, he was feeding us every day. He was letting us park in his driveway. And I told him there was no payment necessary, but he wanted to give me this knife. Now, I've never had an Elk Ridge. Really, I've heard of them. I think I heard of them. But in the end, I never owned one. And this knife turned out to be just a dandy. I love it. It's easy to sharpen. Tough blade. You'll see here, maybe, that I've nicked up the top really bad. So, you can take whatever you want to cut and hit it with a hammer. That's a really solid edge there. It's easy to sharpen. I've really enjoyed this knife. Now, I used to have, like I said, all kinds of knives. I used to have a marine knife, and I can't even remember all the knives. Buck knife. But I think, by far, I really enjoyed this one the most. I don't even know how much they cost. I couldn't tell you anything about it, but I butchered all the chickens with it. I would highly recommend that if you can find a Elk Ridge knife, something that, if they're not too expensive, go out and get it, because it's been a really handy knife. Now I'm going to talk about all kinds of stuff here. How to determine if they're sharp, how to sharpen them. I can shave with these knives, and I'm going to demonstrate that to you here in a bit. One knife that, if you're going to live off grid or homestead, and you're going to raise farm animals, I think you need this knife. Now, what I have is an old timer. I got a story behind the old timer knife. But what this is it's a butchering knife. You got your regular edge here, and then you got a gut hook, and then you got a saw blade. If you imagine that, this is all the things you need to butcher. Of course, you can have a knife on anything. That's not the big issue. But this knife is critical. So when you're coming down from the chest, down the gut, you don't want to use this knife, because what will happen is 9 times out of 10, no matter how hard you try, you can get it, don't get me wrong, but if you're not careful, you're going to nick the stomach, and then all the contents in the stomach come running out into the cavity of the animal, and you got a big mess. Some people say you shouldn't even eat it. Now I clean them out, so I've only done it once. I've only nicked it once. What you do is when you get into the stomach area, you make a little slit right here at the top of the chest, right here, and then you take this gut hook, and then you can run that gut hook. See the gut hook? Nothing can get cut like that. All the cutting is done inside, and so when you run that down the stomach, it won't clip the stomach contents, the actual stomach, just the outside. And this is a lifesaver. Now, once again, I had one of these in the past, and it burned up in the fire. Now, of course, we all can understand what that's for. That's going to be a good blade to cut your bones with. Now, this is an old timer. I've had 2 old timers in my life. I had a knife similar to this that I bought when I was 8 or 9 years old. My parents owned a bakery in a strip mall. Had a grocery store, it had a restaurant, had a laundromat, and it had a drugstore. In the drugstore, though, was, I mean, of course you went to the counter and you could get your prescriptions, but before that it was like an old-time store where you just walk in, you could buy your things, and they sold old-timers. My mom and dad paid me to work in the bakery, to clean up, do dishes. You know, I used to glaze the donuts, and I was a pretty rich 8-year-old kid. I mean, I can remember one time at 8 years old back in the 70s, I had $100. Oh, but anyway, so I bought an old timer, and I remember the price of it. It was $19 and some odd cents. I bought it, and the thing is I thought I would get in trouble for it. I don't know why I thought that, but I went over there, I bought it, I didn't tell my parents we were buying it, and they never seemed to care. They didn't question me buying it or anything. I thought, I know I'm going to get in trouble. I had to make excuses and all kinds of stuff like, oh, I should have told you, you know, whatever. 8 years old. But I've always enjoyed old timers. I've had another one in my life. It was given to me. Now, the first one I owned, I lost as a teenager. Long story, don't want to get into it, but I know exactly where I lost it. So I'm disappointed that I lost that knife. But then later I was given a small little pocket knife, just a little baby thing. Couldn't use it for much. It got burned up in the camper. Now, the thing about old timers, I don't know if this is still true with newer old timers. I just don't know. The one I had corroded. And so the blade turned dark. Now, you could sand it down and clean it back up, but it always turned back to being a dark color. I don't remember if I did anything to it to make it happen like that. Like, did I wear off the stainless steel protection or something? I don't know. But then the one I was given also had that corrosion. So I thought this one would corrode right away. Right after I sharpened it, I figured it would corrode. It hasn't. Now, I've only had it a few months, but it didn't corrode. So I don't know if they've changed the design on the old timers or something, but this one seems to be a little bit more durable. But even the corrosion, it's no big deal. The knife of all knives, the Swiss Army knife. I mean, I absolutely cannot live without Swiss Army. I've had them most of my adult life after I discovered them. I wish I'd have had this on the submarine. When I was on the submarine, I carried a little buck knife, but I would have much preferred had this knife. It's just got all the tools as a machinist mate. I was a machinist mate, forward of the reactor. Worked on all kinds of stuff, hydraulics and diesels and refrigeration units. This would have came in real handy. Now, if you're going to get a Swiss Army knife, get one where the Phillips screwdriver comes out the back like this. You don't want one that comes down like that. Those are so frustrating. When it comes out the back, you can use it like this or like this. Now, this one has a little flashlight. You can get them on Amazon. This one was pretty hard to find. I think you can see the flashlight. It was pretty hard to find, but I did eventually find it. I used to own one like this. Actually, I had two. I had a blue one and a red one. Of course, they both burned up in the fire. I was actually able to find new batteries for this. The old one I had, the flashlight died eventually, and I couldn't find batteries. But now they got Amazon, you can replace the batteries pretty easy. I meant to grab some wire before I came out here. But if you look at the screwdriver here, and you always have a knife next to the screwdriver. Well, right there, you will see a little indentation. So if you take your wire here, and you put that in there, you bring the knife down. I don't want to cut my mic. This is my mic wire. Bring that knife down, and you can actually strip that wire using that little knife. I wish, like I said, I would have brought some wire with me, but it's just not that hard. Once you get the wire cut, you bring the knife down onto the wire, it cuts it, you twist it, you bring that knife back up, take that out, then you just take that wire, you put it in that little crevice there, and you strip that off. It's got a toothpick, it's okay. I do use the tweezers quite a bit for what they were actually designed to be used for, which is picking splinters. I use that all the time for picking splinters. Works great. I just like the Swiss Army knife. The way I sharpen them, I used to try to sharpen them by hand, but I'm just no good at it. And I don't think anybody could be as good at sharpening as what this thing is. It's called an AccuSharp. But you're probably not going to be able to read that, but it's called AccuSharp. Get them on Amazon, quite easy. And they're just so easy to sharpen. I'll use the old, bigger blade so I don't mess everything up. You just take the sharpener and you run it over the knife like that. It's just real handy and it doesn't take that much to do. And it just makes it razor sharp. To demonstrate how sharp it is. I'm going to get a piece of paper here. Now this isn't the best paper to use. The best paper to use is usually a printer paper. So normally you should be able to take the knife and just rake it across like this, but this paper is so weak, you got to kind of take it like this, and then you can just see how it cuts like a razor. Now the thing is you don't want it to rip. You don't want it to, rip the paper. And when you look at the edge of the paper, you're going to be able to tell how well it cut because there's no flaking. When you rip a piece of paper, you're going to see gouging like that. You don't see that when you cut it. So earlier, before I made the video, I was testing to make sure everything was working right, and my old timer knife here, I ran through the piece of paper, and you could see that it gouged right there. And so what that means, if you look at the knife, you're going to see a piece of paper hanging on it every time. You'll see a little whisker of paper on it, and you're going to know that that little spot right there, wherever that is, has a ding in it, in the blade. It's not completely sharp. And I literally took 2 or 3 swipes with the sharpener here, and it cuts just perfectly. It's so windy I can't keep all my papers together. So again, quick little demonstration, just like a razor. But when you buy this device here, like I said, I can shave with it. So you should be able to see, and I can do that with every one of my knives. So if you will, I would appreciate it if you'll click this box right here. It'll take you to my other channel. Watch that video, I appreciate it. If you like the channel, please subscribe. So I hope I can inspire you to build up your collection so you can live your dream. Thanks for watching.